as you can tell, Chris can't be with us this evening, so if you'll, I'll call the meeting to order, and if you'll stand with me and recite the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next item is to approve the agenda for this evening's meeting.
So moved. Second. Yes.
Then move to approve the agenda, the regular meeting of October 12th, 2020 meeting by Courtney Hewlett and seconded by Eric Walters. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. And our next topic on the agenda is student and staff recognition.
Congratulations to Coach Wayne Birch, who was selected to be inducted into the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Coach Birch will be recognized as one of the Elite 11, which honors former high school, college, and professional players and coaches who made a positive difference on their sport or have contributed to some other meaningful way to the game. The induction ceremony will take place on October 20th. Congratulations to Dr. Vicki McNamara for her selection to the Accessible Educational Materials State Leadership Team. Missouri is one of 7 states to receive technical assistance with the National AEM Center. The leadership team will provide input to improve the process for ensuring that students with disabilities receive and use high-quality educational materials and related technologies. Caleb Welch, a CHS student, will be participating in the Regional Youth Leadership Forum. The RLFs will provide students with tools and goal-setting strategies for their transition from high school to post-secondary education or employment. Dr. Julie Dill will serve as a panel speaker for the Missouri Association of School Business Officials Annual Conference. Congratulations to the following classified employees of the month for October: Stephanie Gerard, Special Services Secretary; Teresa Elliott, Special Services Secretary; Alex Martinez, Osage Beach Elementary Custodian; Katie McGrew, Capstone Secretary; and Jonna Keniston, Dogwood Elementary Paraprofessional. Also, congratulations to Gavin Schulte, who earned a return trip to state swimming with an auto cut time in the 50 freestyle. And finally, congratulations to tennis district champions Haley Holtz and Victoria Watson. And that's all I have. Yes, ma'am.
The next item on our agenda is public comment. And let me review our policy on that. Pursuant to board policy BD-DH-1, the following rules will be applied to the public comment portion of the meeting. The president must recognize the speaker, and I do have 2 cards here, before he or she is allowed to speak. The speaker must provide his or her name, address, telephone number, and the subject of the comment on a sign-up sheet prior to the start of the board meeting. Individuals will be heard on a first-come, first-served basis. The board will establish a maximum time limit for the public comment period, and each individual may only speak for 5 minutes. The board president will monitor the time and will strictly adhere to these time limits. No individual will be permitted to speak more than once during this period if there are other persons who would like to speak and have not spoken yet. If there's a large group intending to speak about the same issue, the president may select 1 or 2 representatives of the large group to speak to the issue. The board will take all comments under advisement, and responses to patrons or groups will be made after research and study. The board may request that an issue be presented as an agenda item at the next regular board meeting. Only items from the posted agenda will be discussed. If an individual seeks to address an issue that is scheduled to be discussed by the board in closed session, the board may require the person to hold his or her comments until closed session. The board may vote to suspend or amend these rules in extraordinary circumstances. The board may impose additional rules as it deems necessary and reserves the right to alter the above rules, depending on the circumstances. The board reserves the right to cancel, reschedule, or delay the public comment period at any time or delay comment on a particular topic. The board may refuse to hear comments on a particular topic if advised to do so by legal counsel. I will also remind everyone that public comments in open session are not to address specific staff members or students. Further, board policy KK states that if a visitor's conduct becomes disruptive, threatening, or violent, then they may be required to leave. As I said earlier, we do have two public comment cards. The first was received from Regina Ennis, and the second one from Ashley Hayes. And the item you wish to discuss is board meetings. That, as you heard me explain a minute ago, that is not a topic on our agenda. We can take your item of concern under advisement, and the board can discuss that, and then we will get back to you. But since it is not a topic on the agenda this evening, we will not be discussing that topic. Let's move on. The next item on our agenda is consent items. Does anyone have any questions on those? Hearing no discussion, I would entertain a motion.
To approve consent items as presented, excluding item A.
Second.
It's been moved to approve the consent items as presented, excluding item A. Is that your motion? Moved by Laura Davis and seconded by Troy Reisner. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
To approve consent item A as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve consent item A as presented by Laura Davis and seconded by Courtney Hewitt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The next item on our agenda is approval of bills. I'm sorry. No, I did not. I'm sorry. So I would abstain from A. Thank you, Courtney. Next item is approval of bills. Any discussion on any of those?
To approve all bills and then as presented, excluding bills for whichever regular GMC and additional system.
Any further discussion? Been moved by Laura Davis and seconded by Courtney Hewitt to approve all bills and addendum as submitted, excluding Hewlett Chevrolet. Okay. Buick GMC, Inc. and Lake Regional Health Systems. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Vote to approve Buick Chevrolet Buick GMC Incorporated and Lake Regional Health Systems Bill.
Been moved and seconded to approve Hewlett Chevrolet Buick GMC Inc. and Lake Regional Health System bills as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Courtney is saying. Next item, approval of treasurer's report.
So on your financial summary, you can see that the September 2020 ending balances were about $2 million more as we compare this year to last year. Part of that is due to interest earned on escrow funds for the refunded bonds. Another item, that third bullet down on your financial summary, I'll back up. We'll do the second bullet down. When you look at total receipts, you can see that they're slightly less as we compare this year to last year. But then when you look at total expenditures being down quite a bit, we've had a few less projects in the district over the course of this summer as compared to in previous years where we had some re-roofing projects, and last year we had a big security upgrade at the high school with the camera system and that. So some of those items, because our facilities are in such good shape right now, that we haven't needed to do. When you look at year-to-date total receipts, though, you see those are up. That's good news right now. So when you compare expenditures down, receipts are up. Pretty good place to be in light of everything, but still trying to play defense a little bit. Gave you some specifics there on local receipts, kind of how they're coming in, and state receipts as well. And then year-to-date federal receipts, probably the one that might catch your eye the most too, because that's a big reason why those receipts are up is you can see that it's almost $800,000. We've just had some federal payments come in this year at a different time. So that's probably going to even out as we go moving forward a little bit. And we've also received some CARES funding in light of the COVID situation to kind of fill the hole on some other, state receipts as they're being prorationed. So that's what I've got for the financial summary. I don't know if you have any questions I might be able to help with this evening.
That sixth bullet down, the total year-to-date local receipts were down, and quite a bit of earnings on investment was down.
Yeah, that's it'd be nice to see things bounce back a little bit in the market, but of course with school funds, the way they have to be invested with as much securities behind them for the safety of those investments, they just haven't bounced back at this point in time. So we were riding good for a couple of years, and then with the pandemic, that interest has really shut down.
That was the place that would make sense down. I was wondering about Dr. Bill's report about not getting some of the CARES funding, but then have opportunities somewhere else. Is that correct?
So we did not get any FEMA funding, but I've applied for 5 CARES grants. And we're seeing some word about some of those that we're getting, have the opportunity for those.
And with the FEMA, it was just the way they were distributing it, or we just didn't qualify?
So in March, when I started the process with FEMA, they were like, yes, whatever it takes to work toward this, keep the students and staff safe. And so state was all good with it, federal was good with it, and then about August, the middle of August, they were saying this is just part of normal. Wearing masks is going to be normal school business. The atomizers, normal school business. So they kind of switched a little bit, but a lot on us. And so we weren't able to be awarded any of that because it's normal school business items now. So that was okay. I got word on Friday, and I turned around and finished up the grant on Monday and Tuesday, and I got to throw those expenses into another, hopefully, opportunity to get that money back to them.
Any other questions? There are no other questions. I need a motion been moved and seconded to approve the September 2020 Treasurer's Report as submitted. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Right. The next item on our agenda is the transportation report and bus route approval.
Thank you. Mr. Quinday.
I can barely hear you back there, so I will step forward.
Thank you.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to the board giving me the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I hope you all have had an opportunity to review my report to the board. And right now at this time, I'd like to offer you all any questions to be answered by me. Don't have to. That's it.
I saw the Springfield News this morning, Mr. Quinday, Lebanon School District was talking about the need for drivers. Is there any ideas out there that are viable?
With our department,
That you've heard?
I actually contacted, I saw that on KY3 this morning, and I contacted Joe Pemberton this morning also to ask him if there was any way we would be able to help them. We would be more than happy to. Although when it comes to drivers, that would be one part that I couldn't help you with. But anything else that we possibly would be able to do, either putting our heads together or whatever. Right now at this time, as you said, approximately 20 drivers are behind. We also had to do the same thing for a couple of weeks here about a month ago, where we had to double some routes up. He's basically doing the same thing because you have a lighter load of children due to virtual and parents bringing their children in. So, with that being said, you take one step forward, take two steps back, and you just have to start using your brain and try to figure out what we're going to do to be able to accommodate this. So far, knock on wood, we've been very fortunate and been able to continue on. So we did have front door evacuations, and we started those this morning, and it was amazing the reduction of students that I see getting off the buses for the front door evacuation at the high school. So, if we had to end up doing something due to a shortage of drivers, again, we would go back to the same thing we resorted to here about a month ago, and we would take those buses and we would have to double up the routes. The nice thing is the parents seem to be very understanding, and we don't get any qualms or quarrels from them, knowing that we're having to double up, and they know the reason why.
Is there any common reasons why you're having a lack of drivers right now?
I'm sorry.
Any conclusions about why we have a shortage of drivers right now?
Everybody's got a shortage of drivers. Doesn't matter where you go, whether it's to Buffalo or Fulton or anywhere, everybody's got a sign up, they're needing drivers. A lot of that, I would say, is past history of drivers. There's so much background checks on these drivers, and having to get into, now we have to get into a consortium for drug and alcohol testing. And we're all based into that. The FBI background checks, doing case net, just checking to make sure for us that we have drivers that are upfront, they're honest, they're law abiding. So many people out there, not that they're not good people, but it's their background. So, I can't say it's not that people don't want to be bus drivers. In a lot of cases, I think you possibly can't be bus drivers due to the regulations. Any other questions?
I'll just take this opportunity to congratulate you on your running of the transportation department and specifically your mechanics to keep our bus fleet running so well that we've achieved, excellence award, fleet excellence award for so many years. And we hope to continue that and understand from your report too, that with our aging bus fleet, that takes parts and maintenance to keep those buses running. So, thank you, and thank your mechanics,
We'll
for the
do.
excellent job you do. Thank you, Terry.
You know, this is our 21st year. It's kind of amazing that on March the 13th, Friday, we had our inspection. Monday on March 16th, we all know what happened. Then in the summer, so here we are, we just got our inspection certificate for our 21st year. And then the 16th of March hit. And then we re-inspected, we have to re-inspect those buses again in the summer. So basically, our buses got inspected double this year for the start of school this August. So I will definitely pass that on to my mechanics. They will definitely appreciate it, and it's well deserved. Again, it's not myself that runs the transportation department. It's the people that we have within the department. So that kudos will go back to them. Very much.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I need a motion to approve those bills.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the 2020-2021 bus routes as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The next item is I-ready update.
Dr. Duke?
So this is really quick and sweet. You know, this is our beginning point where kids came back to us in August where they were scoring out of skills for their new grade level this year. Typically, our K4 does fairly well, but this year you'll see some pockets of really excitement for me on the math side. We got a great start. But what I wanted to kind of just bring out, a lot of our K4 kiddos during the COVID shutdown, the COVID closure, they continued to work on I-ready and filling in those gaps during that closure. And then again, probably some of them, like when I was a little kid, I played school all summer, continue to do that. So if they didn't have a way to do it with technology, we have I-ready packets that were sent home, so the kids were able to access I-ready either way. So kudos to the principals at the K4 level that made that continue to work for them. So that's a snapshot of where we're at. So what we'll do is when we take the second quarter, we will start looking at growth in areas they've identified. I know the principals that part into this data right after they got it, and they've got their intervention structure set up. They're ready to rock and roll. In fact, they've already been going. So it'll be interesting to see what the second one will bring for it. So that's what I've got tonight. It's just a good starting point.
And it looks like even with your needing to shut down in the spring, that you're at or above the levels you were at these times the last few years. So
Yep.
that's pretty impressive. And I appreciate the transparency of really, so teachers and administrators can see where their kids are, what time and time.
It's a great tool because it gives us individual student gaps. So we know exactly where to go in like a doctor and prescribe what they need. We can fill in those gaps and get them back on the team.
Discussion? Question? Dr. Bill? Thank you, Dr. Bill. Next item on the agenda is a math and science update.
Dr. Neal?
So if you would open the slides in the professional or the PDF of the slides, I'm gonna go through those. Normally we have a screen, but that screen's in front of us, so we decided to go ahead and use the Chromebooks this evening and bring the audience to follow along digitally as well. Slide number 1, I'm just gonna kind of give you a background here and provide you a brief overview tonight of where we are in our secondary schools regarding math and science. I want to tell you where we came from and then where we feel like we are heading based on the data that we've collected so far. As you know, our standards were officially adopted in 2016. So during the 2017-2018 school year, our teachers worked diligently to unpack those standards, and we used our early release time to do that. This work was tedious, but it was very necessary, and our teachers got a chance to get their hands dirty with the standards, and it deepened their understanding and their own knowledge of the standards. In 2018 and 19, we developed our curriculum team, and they began working in ELA and math. That was our starting point. Now we're in our third year. We've expanded from just ELA and math to science and social studies. I can assure you that our structures in place are teacher-driven. They're based around communication, and they all have the accountability of local and nationally normative assessment. So when I tell you where I think we are right now, it's based on national norms. On the second slide, it says math performance. I can also say that in recent years, we haven't performed as well as we'd like to in math. And I definitely don't want that to be a reflection on our teachers, because our performance has not matched the effort of our teachers. We've just had some things that didn't connect there for a while, and having recognized that, we're very happy that we've been able to find some resources that will help us improve. There was no state test last spring. We're definitely looking forward to a state test this spring, because we feel that we are on a trajectory that's going to help us really perform well. Slide number 3, we use iReady for our assessment tool in kindergarten through 4th grade. We started using Eureka Math in 2016 after we piloted it during the 2015-16 school year. Our teachers decided that that would be a great way to go for us, kindergarten through 6th grade at the time. In that, you can see in our score here that our median score is based off of our fall data, and their national median score there is based off of their end of the year data. So at this point right now, we have places that are very close to where we should be by the end of the year already. We feel like that is obviously our teachers spend a lot of time communicating and collaborating over assessments and what we're doing, but then also intervening and making sure that we go back and fill those gaps. But there's a lot of optimism about how we will score. The other thing that I think is worth pointing out is that's having not had the last quarter of school last year. Like Dr. Dill said, in 7th grade math a few years ago, we had deep concerns about how poorly we performed, and now we're actually ahead of the national norm for the national median score. And then also we had concerns in algebra, and we're ahead there. So spring test is something that we're definitely looking forward to. And again, that's not having had 4th quarter last year. So we're very happy where we are headed, and with the efforts of our instructors and our students. I also would like to point out there that we have that 2% in that pre-algebra. There's not a pre-algebra test. So that's kind of a great span test, and that's just great knowledge for us to have, because those kids will be in algebra, and we will have them algebra ready by the time that comes around. Slide number 5 is on our science performance, and this is a little bit harder to talk about because we haven't had a science test in 2 years. Again, we began our curriculum work in 2018-19, and we didn't focus on science and social studies at the time as a district focus, though those teachers and those collaborative teams did focus on there. Those were officially added this summer, and much of our science work has been supported through Project Lead the Way, robotics, and science research. So we have a lot of support for our science folks. And if you look at slide number 6, this is, again, 2 school years ago, data from 2019, and our performance in 5th grade and 8th grade isn't very good. And I can tell you that there was a period when those standards were adopted when we did not really emphasize a lot of science in our elementary schools. That then would be caught up in biology. As you can see on those scores, we would get ahead by the time they were in high school, but our high school teams had to run back really. And our teachers did a good job elementary-wise as much as they could. It just wasn't part of what we were requiring from them. Well, we've added Project Lead the Way now, and as you know, all of our elementary schools were recognized also, move on to my next slide. So, as you can see, that's where we are with math or with science, and that's also kind of that's again, we're talking about something from 2 years ago. I'm really looking forward to having fresh data for you after this spring. I've invited Mr. Thompson to talk to us for 2 slides, for the next 2 slides. He's going to talk to us a little bit about our ACT performance.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity. I do want to share, I think you've got some slides there in front of you, hopefully on math and science. I'll just give you a little background. You can't read that for yourselves, but also want to give you a little background. So just so we're all on the same page, the data that we get from ACT report is data derived from students' most recent scores. And sometimes that gets lost in translation too, because not always is their most recent score their highest. Now, generally, you would think that'd be the case, but ACT report is indicated by students' most recent score, even if they take it a multiple number of times. So in math, as you can see, we're currently at the state average of 20.2. Now, I say currently, that's from the class of 2019, so that's been a while. Typically, by this point, we hope to receive our ACT report, but we haven't yet, and I'm hoping that we'll get that very soon. It seems like over the course of the past few years, it gets later and later and later. So when I say currently, please understand that's the class of 2019, not 2020, but I'm going to touch on 2020 in just a second. So as you can see, 5 years ago in math, we were above the state average. In 2016, 17, and 18, we did dip below, and that's indicated on the graph there, or on the chart rather. So we did see a decline. If you may remember that those 3 years, the ACT was required for every single graduate in the state. There was a lot of conversation about whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing, but regardless of where you land on it, that was the thing. And so for those 3 years, it was required. Since then, it is no longer required. And as you can see, in the class of 2019, we were back at the state average. And also, I would like to point out that scores during that 3-year period at the state level also saw a decline as well. That doesn't excuse the fact that we're still not happy with where we are, but I do want to make that note. So that being said, we have rebounded a little bit, and we are at the state average of 20.2 for the class of 2019 for math. Additionally, we haven't received the data for 2020 yet. However, I did run data in SysK-12 on our graduates from 2020. Now again, I believe that data in SysK-12 most likely indicates the highest scores our students received, but by that, our average of 2020 would be 20.4. So it would be a very slight increase, at least headed in the right direction, if that data holds true for our ACT report that we hope to get soon. In science, you'll see similar trends over the course of the past 5 years. However, you can also see that we are above the state average again, as we were several years ago. We're at 20.5, where the state is at, 21.5, where the state is at 20.8. So we're pleased with that progress and that rebound. And based on the SysK-12 data that I ran for the class of 2020, I would approximate that our data would be 21.8 for our science scores for last year's graduating class. Again, please understand that's an estimate, the best estimate I can give you right now without getting the official report. Something that I would like to add on our ACT is based on our SysK-12 data for last year. Our composite score would be approximately 21.3. That would be a slight increase and above the state average. And while we make gains, I want you to know we're still not satisfied. I know I'm not. I know our teachers are, but our teachers have done a great job helping our students get to those points. And as Dr. Neal pointed out, specifically with science too, I can't tell you the number of programs that we have that are positive that are helping move that in the right direction as well. You mentioned robotics and science research, the project Move the Way, not to mention just the work that our teachers do to focus on teaching and learning every single day. I do want to point out that I know we're focused on science and math, but while I have your attention, if it's okay, I do want to point out that we are above the state average in science and math, and we're also above the state average with our composite. But that data from 2019, we're also above the state average in English at 20.9. Missouri at 20.3, and reading, we were at 21.9, with Missouri at 21.3. So, you know, we hope to continue that trend in a positive direction and make those gains in the future as well. So, if you have any questions for me, but that's our data, as most recent and most accurate as I can convey it tonight.
Thank you for the ACT data, Mr. Thompson. I also asked Mr. Stacy to join us tonight because we had some specific questions about changes that were made in 7th grade math this year, and I thought he would be best to address those.
Thanks, Dr. Neal. I do appreciate the time to speak to the board today. I do think it's interesting that Gary, when he was up here, talked a little bit about March 16th, the last time we had students in our building prior to the beginning of the school year, which I think is really important to discuss when we talk about math placement in middle school as we move into a new school year. We've never really crossed the boundaries of re-entry in terms of a pandemic before, which I think is a really important piece. As many of you are aware that middle school is the first time that we start to talk about math acceleration. And as Dr. Neal alluded to earlier, that we are very aware that we know that we have areas of growth when it comes to math. Over the last 3 to 4 years, the math team at the middle schools worked very specifically on trying to develop some selection criteria to make sure that when students are coming to the middle school, that we can place them appropriately to make sure they're at the right level of math and where they need to be. So we are firm believers at CMS that anytime we move kids into an accelerated classroom, that we do not want to build a foundation of algebra, or foundation of geometry, or the foundation of any math until that foundation is firm and solid to really start building the rest of the frame. Because if we have a wet foundation, we have concerns that those students are going to fall off. Now, I know it's this year, there's some things in terms of transition when we start talking about math, especially in middle school, that haven't necessarily been ideal. One of the biggest concerns that we had when school was shut down last year is how are we going to place our kids correctly and accurately in terms of where they need to be as 7th graders when they come to the middle school. So we're looking at 5 months of no direct instruction, no way to deliver any algebra placement test. We held our students harmless in terms of accountability and grade work and that kind of stuff. And very difficult in terms of how to monitor our students' progress in terms of math placement when the kids come to the middle school. And on top of that, when we look at the different varieties of data, the different metrics that we use in terms of placing kids, we felt like we didn't have enough good quality data in terms of making sure that we accurately place those kids coming to the 7th grade school year. So with lots of discussion with our math team and other people involved within our math process at the middle school, we felt it was necessary to hold off on placing any kids in any accelerated programs coming to 7th grade math at the beginning of this year. Not that we wouldn't develop any accelerated programs, but we felt it was really, really important to make sure our kids were placed accurately. One of the reports that NBA put out over the summer, they were concerned about a potential 50% learning loss with math. We're in the middle of concerns in terms of our math performance as a district. We don't feel it's good to start placing kids in accelerated programs without the right metrics and some objective measures to be put in place. We don't want to limit to subjectivity. So we have developed sections for 7th grade students. We did so actually, I believe it was last week, we developed our new sections. We now have 2 sections of accelerated math and another section of algebra for 7th graders. We looked at a number of different metrics. We wanted to make sure that we had a good firm assessment in place. We did use our NWA data. Our NWA data came back good, really good in terms of the 7th grade transition. Shockingly good, and we were really excited about that. Our teachers went hard and put their nose to the grindstone to look at the metrics in which we were going to, how we're going to place those students into the correct courses. So we looked at the overall NWA result, what we call a RIT score, and then we looked at some different domains what the NWA test provides. One of those being algebraic reasoning or algebraic thinking, and then number sense and operations. There's some other domains that NWA measures in math, but we didn't feel those are necessary, like the statistical piece, and then there's a geometry piece, and you can't get into geometry without algebra anyway. So we kind of put those portions out, and we've done that for our selection criteria for quite some time. And then we also, those students that scored, so we used 278, I believe, as a bubble, or some of those students on the bubble score for the overall, and gave them placement tests, as well as any kid over a 230 to determine what placement that we looked at. We do have a weighted rubric that we follow. And our teachers did so to a T, in terms that we try to eliminate as much objectivity as possible with that. And so therefore, we now have some, 2 sections of accelerated math and a section of algebra in place. Now, I know there's concerns, okay, we're in the middle of first quarter. We weren't too sure necessarily when those sections would be put in place, because we wanted to kind of get a good feel where our students were, and we also did make sure we were ready, as well as the students were ready. Luckily, we were able to make some changes to our schedule and changes in sections to make it happen within the next few weeks. But even with it starting in the middle of the first quarter, we feel confident that our kids will be fine. Our accelerated math program uses the same curricular resource, just taught at an accelerated level. We do add some extra standards in there, where they just move a little bit faster. And in terms of talking with our algebra teacher from the 8th grade, Mr. Richardson, who does a fantastic job, he felt we're in a good place, so we're still in a good place with our 7th grade sections of algebra, especially with solving equations. I've been in that classroom actually a few times already, and they're right where they need to be, covering terms of solving equations, starting with simple equations, but they're starting to move faster and faster and faster, knowing that they've had some stronger foundational concepts that are there that they can accelerate along. So we're excited that we're still able to put those sections in place. But like I said, the purpose behind this is to ensure that we have a strong, solid foundation, making sure our kids are placed accurately. Transition into a school year in the middle of a pandemic is something new for everybody, but we feel like we'd be doing a disservice to our students if we were trying to just place kids without the right metrics in place to make sure that happens. So thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Stacy. I'll conclude by saying that we look forward to presenting more information to you as we go. The new tools that we're using, iReady is not new, but NWEA is, and then also Illuminate. We have a lot more data at our fingertips. We can really measure where our kids are all the time. And Dr. Dillon and I have talked about how to get that information to you more frequently. We're going to be working on that over the next month, and we'll have something for you.
Are these slides saying we didn't have the learning loss that NWA predicted a lot of schools would have?
Yes.
I'm happy to see where we score, where our kids did score, missing out on, I know that was a big concern in everybody. I will say last year, my concern with math was with my own 6th grader who, just with the CPM curriculum, he had mastered whatever they were working on, so he spent a lot of time teaching himself YouTube channels, or he was given a book, an algebra book and just told to work in it. So with the CPM math curriculum, I know I reviewed some survey results from the January board survey where teachers did express a lot of concern with that choice in curriculum. Can you provide any schools that are using it solely as their main source of curriculum and show success with that? Or, what was our reason for choosing it? When we've seen, since 2014, we've seen a downward trend in our math scores.
We have a video on our Facebook page that kind of gives that background, like how we got to CPM as a resource. And then also there's a list of places that are using it currently. But it is something that we took a lot of time to do, and I have an actual, I've got a full packet on that. I could just send it to you.
Okay, that would be great. So there are schools that are using it as a standalone curriculum.
I don't know about a standalone curriculum. I'm not sure what other schools are doing there. I know we're not doing it as a standalone because we have a curriculum that's a resource that supports it. But I can tell you who else is using it. I just don't know that it's a standalone.
I just wanted to make a comment that we're fortunate, or we're ahead of the curve in our district. We have 2 student advisors to our school board. That doesn't take place everywhere in Missouri, but we have 2 students, and both of their reports to the board this month, they go back and talk to fellow students and report. But both of those 2 students had high praise, Mr. Thompson, for the math and the science courses that are available to them at the high school, and really feel like they're getting a good foundation in science and math based on those courses at the high school. So, you know, thank you for that. And like I said, it didn't go unnoticed by the students who are taking those courses.
Although on her board report, I was concerned about the lack of funding for the science research. That's not accurate?
No, it's not.
Okay.
And I asked Dr. Hadfield myself, I had that same concern.
Yeah.
Do you want to paraphrase what you said?
Yes, basically for the instructional materials for the class, that funding was not cut. Now, we do have a situation where students may be working on a project, and I can remember Mrs. Davis even bringing this up at a point in time with her daughter being involved, that some students were paying for their resources and materials and some were not. I know Mr. Thompson worked with Mr. Reeves to say, hey, at this point in time, our students that are working on their individual projects really probably need to be responsible for that portion of what they're doing. But if we had a student that got into a bind, we'd certainly sit down and talk about it. So, but for the classes, no, the funding is still there.
And my mind went to that, especially for the science, their project work,
Yeah.
that if there was really a student struggling for funding, that maybe an entity like the Idiots Club, if they were made aware that a particular student, not by name, but a particular student needed help because they come up with a lot of those kind of items for students, you know, paying for test scores and that. So I would sure they would entertain that as a request. If you know, if there was some reason we couldn't accommodate it at high school, we could probably go to a group like that.
So I don't understand how this board report, do we get back with her and clarify that with her? Because there was obviously some confusion, so I want to make sure that she knows that it is available if they need it.
Sure, and she, I mean, probably just doesn't know the other side to that, so we can clarify.
Okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Neal and Mr. Thompson, Mr. Stacy. Right, the next item, we're going into unfinished business, the strategic plan update.
We did have a few updates on your scorecard, and those are the lunch participation and also the update with iReady that Dr. Dill gave. So that's just a summation of how that looks. And, you know, again, that scorecard is kind of the end of the year look. So when you see that being down there in the red, just please remember that we're giving you the first blush of this, and that card's based on the end of the year. But I did have, you know, the comparable for last year then over to the right. Also, you see the free and reduced, or excuse me, the lunch participation. You see it's down as compared to last year, but you know, we have got about 600 of our students that are in the distance or virtual learning mode. They can access lunch and breakfast and lunch as well, but just a little harder. So that's why those numbers are down just a little bit too. So.
Do they pick up those meals once a week or is it daily?
They had been, we had some students that were coming in daily, but they can get the pickup now for a weekly. I'm not sure what those numbers are yet, but Julie and I haven't had that conversation yet.
And I had a question on their college and career ready, toward the end of that list, respectful and caring environment survey of students. There was a date given of 5/20. So was the survey conducted in May?
That's when the scorecard was updated. We actually, that information came from earlier, but the scorecard was updated. Yeah, so, yeah, sorry if that was a little confusing.
Okay.
Yeah, no, we weren't here to give it, so, or the kids weren't here to give it.
And then the last item on trended budget, I mean, we're not, whatever that is. at the ideal, but there's, I guess, just so much uncertainty with the CARES funding. And
That's exactly right.
makes that. So hopefully as the school year moves along and more of that funding comes to us and it's steady and that we can move that item to the left. Okay. Anyone else have any questions? No motion is next. Thank you, Dr. Pepe, on that update. And the next item is the board wrap-up. I just have a comment, the first item there, board activity calendar. Last year, we asked the building administrators to maybe put a list together of what they thought the most important items that we might attend in their building were for like first semester and second semester. So, Dr. Happy, might we have that kind of a list again?
Certainly, and I know we put that together, yeah, things are a little harder to attend right now since we're doing so much virtually, but we can put some things together, as they become available for you too. We'll keep that in mind.
Well, especially because right now, for a lot of activities, parents aren't even in the building, correct?
That's right. Interesting times right now, but we've really tried to limit our the numbers of outside folks other than our students to our events. So just for example, the typical Veterans Day ceremony that we have, we decided that at this time that's not a good idea to have. And hated doing that, but that's an event that would have been on that list for you. But right now we're not doing it. So as we do progress through this and as those things come up, we'll be happy to provide you with those. But right now there wouldn't be very many.
Well, I don't know if I go attend something that a parent couldn't attend, I feel bad. It's understandable.
And then asking for that list, I realize that, we might be hesitant to come into buildings, or you might not want us into buildings, but it's interesting to see the items that you building administrators take the most pride in and would like to see us come to recognize your staff and students. So that list kind of provides that to us too. So that'd be great. Any other items on that? I see the second item, the board retreat will be going on to Texas during that time, so I won't be at the retreat. Do any of the rest of you have a conflict with that date? If so, let me have it.
Will that go on you?
Yes, ma'am.
We have the items on there for the next month's, from the perpetual calendar. And, I see on the list here that myself, Eric, Julie, and Tim participated in the annual meeting. Did you get any good takeaways from that yet?
So, I did on Friday, I did 4 sessions on Friday. Lots to take back up. And the nice part about this year is that we can go back and do all the sessions. So, as I've been kind of couch down here last weekend, I may go back and do a few here and there. So, I'll be here on the next board meeting and get some wrap ups on a few of the ones that I did.
And I thought our main speaker on, I think, Friday afternoon was when Dr. Renfield spoke to us from the CDC.
Yeah.
His presentation was very, very good, and really enjoyed that. In fact, I even asked, and I don't think I've received an answer from MSBA, but I said, could we somehow put his speech on the MSBA website for people to go listen to, maybe that weren't at the conference, but it was really good information, and I thought that was helpful. And then another session on Saturday was questions they asked a panel of high school students. I don't know how to say it, the effects of COVID on their learning and how that changed their lives, and that was a really interesting. I had 4 poor sound quality, so I missed a lot of it. But I'm gonna go back and try to, even though I attended it, I'm gonna try to re-attend it if they do that again. But I thought that had a lot of value. And maybe we might wanna do that within our own high school. Have a panel of high school students that talked about, how they felt about how the last year ended, maybe how this year started, and again, I asked, and they said those questions that they asked those students, and they were students from all over, St. Louis, rural, urban, students, and it was really interesting to hear their concerns, I mean, and that's why we have these student advisors, to hear their concerns and help us move in the right direction. Dr. Bill or Dr. Hatfield, anything that you took away from that conference?
I enjoyed my sessions. I'm really excited, like Mr. Walters, that I can actually attend every session this year. It's always so hard to choose, a session per rotation, because there's 2 or 3 usually you want to go to. So I'm really excited about being able to go back and watch some more of those. The ones I attended were fabulous. I really thought the budget one was great. We're all in the same boat. And sometimes you have to go to those to know, okay, we're all in the same boat. So, I thought they were great, and I'm excited to get to actually attend all of them sometime this year.
And I was the same way. I didn't get to catch them all on, I know I got interrupted a couple of times. It's a bad thing, doing it while you're, in the office, but I got caught up on a couple of things. So it was nice to be able to go back, and hear over the course, because I caught one just the other day. But Dr. Redfield really was probably my favorite as well, too. He's just he seemed like a very calming, level-headed gentleman that I thought had very good, very sound advice for schools. So.
As far as student advisors, when will they be joining us? I'm anxious to hear about what's going on.
We haven't necessarily discussed that, but I'd like to get them back at the next board meeting.
When is their deadline for their reports? I know they get linked in the morning of, and luckily I have time today to go check them out, but normally, sometimes I don't get to those, and they're important, so.
We haven't set one. Now we can, if the board would like to, get them set up. Maybe Friday afternoon. I know a lot of times, students are working on them over the weekend and get them into you, but they're getting the agenda about the same time you guys get it as well. So because after Chris and I meet on the agenda, he kind of gives a direction, and then that gets out to you. A lot of times on Wednesday. I think by policy it's Thursday. There you go. Some of the documents aren't linked until Friday. That could be a little difficult, but if we could think about our timeframes too, if we need to do that, if that'll help you get it, because I'll catch them too the day of. If you're trying to read it, you might be caught up with something else. So we can see what we can do on our end and see if we can have them get it in by sometime on Friday afternoon, possibly. Is that
Or
great?
even if it's Sunday by 5, we know they're gonna be there.
Okay.
I'm just,
Sure. Yeah.
be helpful.
We can work on that one, because I totally get that.
And that kind of, I've thought that before too, because sometimes I just haven't been able to read them until right before we get to a board meeting. The other thing is, like we have what we think the reports are typically gonna be for now. We can just make sure maybe you work out that they understand that these would be tentative topics for the November meeting. Barring some reason we're not. But, we could give them those ideas a week before, so that maybe they have a weekend, and then this last weekend, put some thoughts together. Because if they're not getting those topics either till late, then maybe they're not having as much interaction with other students. So, maybe by the first Monday or sooner, the first of the month, And if they were here tonight, they could see what the tentative topics are. They would already be working ahead, thinking ahead.
Those, and they get this agenda, so they see it, but we probably just need to highlight it with them.
All right. Any further discussion? And our next item of business is to go into executive session. We have a motion.
Second.
Okay. Been moved and seconded to go into executive session. We need an individual roll call. Carrie? All right, we'll take a short break to stretch and then return for executive session. A different location, but we'll come back in here to go back to regular session.
Yeah.
Then we're in the meeting there. Wait a minute. This part was, that part was, that part wasn't, yeah.
No, wait.
Yeah. This part was. Is there anybody else?
Are there any rules that would ever?
And there's the rule,
Feel free to.
I can answer if you'd like me to.
Well, you can, no,
I think they would have stayed, because they could have stayed in there, right?
yeah, but they could be out in the lobby here. That's what I'm saying. That's why I thought. So we're now back in regular session at Courtney. Do you have an item?
I do have a suggestion to put on the agenda for the board retreat. Looking at some of the scorecard data that we were tracking and trending, that's going to be skewed via pandemic numbers. I would ask the board members to look at 4 to 5 or 6 main pillars, things that we want to track, so we do not continue to bog staff down. Obviously, academics is always going to be tracked, but there's some things that we can pare that down. We're going to be doing that work anyway with the new strategic initiative that will be coming out, so if everybody can just kind of take a look at that scorecard and make sure that what we are tracking and trending is going to be valid for us to make decisions in the future, and pick out a few things that are going to prioritize to get us to this year.
Well, that was, earlier, that was my confusion, that how do we have student satisfaction data if we weren't in school in May? So, yeah, there are probably, that's a good suggestion for a topic for our board meeting on October 27th. Okay. Anything else we need under regular session?
move to adjourn.
Second. Okay. That was Eric. Been moved and seconded to adjourn from the regular meeting of October 12th. Further discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Meeting's adjourned.